In their prayers, people will say to God, Lord, what should I do with my life? Or God, help me to understand what to do in this or that situation. It's so difficult to know, Lord, what you want from me. How am I going to know what you want me to do? And then we consider the words that we heard just now in the gospel reading, which were from the Beatitudes that Jesus delivers in the Sermon on the Mount. And we hear things like, blessed are the meek, and blessed are the pure in heart. And if we're paying attention, it's pretty clear that those words are offering us guidance on how to navigate through life. Now, we don't necessarily get all the fine details, but God has given us brains, He's given us intelligence, and we can work out the details within the very clear framework that Christ sets out for us in His Scriptures and in the life of His church. So we can work all those things out. And we learn very quickly that the framework that He gives us is for everyone. It's accessible to all of us. It's what puts the all in All Saints. Last week we celebrated All Saints, and today All Saints of North America. And so if we're listening, we see that there's lots of teaching that tells us how to conduct our lives. Now, there are others who will say that Christianity is outdated, that there's nothing in the Christian religion that relates to the modern world. But again, if we consider the words of Jesus like the ones we heard today, such as, blessed are the merciful, and blessed are the peacemakers, it becomes pretty clear that that's good advice for our time. And again, it doesn't speak to the nuance of every situation, but with enough intelligence, with level heads and with goodwill, we can figure out those details within the framework that Christ gives us in His gospel and in the life of His church. There's a historian by the name of Tom Holland. That's not the Spider-Man Tom Holland. It's a different Tom Holland. And he recently wrote a book, and by the way, he is not a believer. He's an atheist. And he wrote a book recently where he argues that if it were not for Christianity's influence on Western culture, that we wouldn't have the values that we hold so dear today. That we would not have the ideals that we believe are worth fighting for in military conflicts, in the political arena, and out on the streets in protests. It's good for us to remember that these values that we hold so dear, things like liberty, which is free will, things like the fact that all people are created equal, all of this emerges from the Christian tradition. And if not for Christianity, they wouldn't be around. So the question is not, does the Scripture, does the gospel have anything practical to tell me about my life or about my time? The question is, am I paying attention to what it's telling me with an open mind and with an open heart? Every now and again in our service, we'll hear the deacon, or if the deacon isn't serving, then the priest will say the words, wisdom, let us attend. Now, in the ancient, the older times, and actually even in Orthodox countries today, liturgy is a hub of activity. There's all sorts of things happening during the liturgy. People are lighting candles, they're praying in front of icons, they might be going to confession. All this stuff is going on. And when the deacon calls out wisdom, let us attend, what he's doing is he's calling the people's attention to something that's about to happen. Because we're at a key point in the service, so everybody listen up. That's really what that means. So we don't have that hub of activity. But still, when we hear wisdom, let us attend, it is a signal for us to focus ourselves and our attention on what's about to happen, because it's tough sometimes to stay focused during the service. I get it. And our thoughts leap around like a monkey leaping from tree to tree in a jungle. That's a thing called the monkey mind. So we pay attention. When we hear that wisdom, let us be attentive. Because there's something coming that's important for us. And it'll be of value to us if we receive it with an open mind and an open heart. So before we throw our hands up in frustration saying, God isn't teaching me anything, or how could this religion possibly speak to our times? We start by listening attentively to the wisdom that is given to us by Christ in his scriptures and in the life of his church. And we see that this wisdom is timeless, because as Paul tells us, Jesus Christ is the same yesterday, today, and forever. And what he's done once for all. And it is a truth that applies and can be applied to all situations, all places, and all times. And keeping an open mind and an open heart, as we hear the scriptures, as we learn about the life we are called to in the church, we realize that there's plenty there. There's lots. A lot of it is comforting. A lot of it is challenging, and that's okay too. And all of it is a light to illumine our path and food that endures to life everlasting.